Stan here in a couple minutes, but I just want to hit, at least in our opening segment, on this main event, UFC 218, coming up this weekend. My fight card actually says UFC 218, an embarrassment of riches. It should. I mean, if we were still naming these things, that's what it would say. It says Holloway versus Aldo 2. But again, you've gone 25 minutes with Jose Aldo. He is ubiquitously regarded as the greatest featherweight of all time. He relinquished that belt to Max Holloway a few short months ago and gets the relatively short notice opportunity here in the rematch. I'm very excited for this fight card, and in particular this fight. And I guess I'll just say I think it's going to take a huge effort from anybody right now at 145 pounds to beat Max Holloway. I just love his length. He's got every skill in the book, and might be the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world right now, having won his last 11. So your thoughts on Jose Aldo and what might be different about the rematch this weekend?
Well, for Jose Aldo, listen, I thought he did very well against Max Holloway. He did a great job. The problem is, again, I don't know if this was an injury. I believe that Andre Pederneiras is saying that he did injure his leg, which was why he wasn't kicking. And anytime Jose Aldo goes out there, that's going to be the biggest threat. Always, just the power that he has in his kicks, man, is unbelievable. I can still feel to this day. This guy, he kicks like a mule. And, I think for Jose, if he's not going to show a lot of variety, he's going to limit himself. And he was able to get away with it a little bit against guys like a Frankie Edgar, which is very impressive. The fact that he didn't throw a whole lot of kicks and still was relatively successful, or actually put on an amazing defensive performance against Frankie Edgar with just his boxing and head movement and footwork. But against someone like Max Holloway, who's as long as he is, a guy who pressures like a Max Holloway, you got to throw some kicks, especially down the middle. You got to use knees. You got to use elbows. You need every single weapon you can have. And if Jose Aldo can throw those weapons extremely well, why wasn't he doing it against Holloway?
Right.
And so you have to kind of believe that he was injured in that fight. I think what makes Jose Aldo and a lot of fighters so good is the fact that you have variety. You have more weapons. And Jose isn't showing that variety anymore. And there's also times where he wants to kind of put it into cruise control and kind of just cruise in third gear. And you can't always do that. You certainly can't do that against someone like Max Holloway, who's going to try to race you every single second of the fight. So I think that was his biggest mistake, not showing his variety, not having those tools at the long range. And as you mentioned, a guy as long as Max Holloway, being about 5'11" and a big 145 pounds, Jose isn't going to be the bigger fighter anymore. He's not going to fight a guy like a Chad Mendes, who's going to be shorter, low, not as long of a reach. He's going to have to do something differently here. So that's where he's going to have some more tools and make up that range with his leg game. And if he can do that, I think he can win the fight. But Holloway is very, very difficult problem.
Ken Flo Gaethje, 18-0, 15 knockouts, UFC debut against Michael Johnson. For me, front runner for fight of the year. Gaethje says he wants to be the toughest motherfucker in MMA, and at least right now, I think he's the name that I begin that conversation with. Your thoughts on this matchup, Alvarez-Gaethje, and ultimately who gets their hand raised?
There's no doubt about that. The way that Eddie Alvarez wins this fight is by getting in and getting out, by outpointing Gaethje, by not getting involved in a brawl. Now, how probable is that? Probably 0.001%. Eddie Alvarez has that same kind of fighter mentality, that same brawler's mentality. And when you bring him into that game, I don't think Eddie Alvarez is going to have the discipline or the default button to not play that game against Gaethje. However, that's where Gaethje thrives a little bit more than Eddie Alvarez. He hasn't had as many wars as Eddie Alvarez, so I think he's a little bit fresher at this point in their careers. Wrestling-wise, he might have a little bit of an edge. Eddie's going to be tough to take down in the beginning. But as the fight goes on, I think Gaethje is going to start to find that button of Eddie Alvarez and catch him. I'm going with Gaethje. However, Gaethje's got to be very careful with pacing himself in this fight. Sometimes he puts in his sixth gear a little bit too early, and then he gets exhausted. But he kind of lives in that realm of suffering better than anybody. I think Gaethje wins this fight, and we have ourselves another classic.
This is my pre-show prep, ladies and gentlemen. Do you see what I do? I just take all this stuff from Kenny, and it's all going to be added to my cards, and I use it on pay-per-view this weekend. I love it. So first fight back for Eddie Alvarez since that forgettable end to his last fight, the no contest after the illegal knee landed against Dustin Poirier. That is Alvarez's only fight actually this year since the championship loss to Conor McGregor last November. Now, that same night in Dallas in May when Eddie Alvarez fought Dustin Poirier, Henry Cejudo was to face Sergio Pettis. Now this fight will happen. It's a flyweight title eliminator. I do believe the winner of this fight is going to fight Demetrius Johnson for the title unless TJ Dillashaw sort of snakes his way in there. See what I did there? Slithers his way in there, TJ Dillashaw. All right, so Cejudo favored here, guys, minus 245. Ken Flo, Sergio Pettis defeated Brendan Moreno, 5-round main event at altitude, I believe. He's won 4 in a row. 6 of his last 7 has Pettis. He's 7-2 in the UFC. Pretty shiny, juxtaposed against his brother Showtime Pettis, who is 7-6 in the UFC. Pettis, the underdog here. Does he get the nod from Ken Flo, or do you agree with Matt and you going with Cejudo?
I can't figure out if I love this fight or if I hate this fight. I really love both of these guys, and the fact that they're facing each other right now kills me. These guys I think are future champions. I just think that there's 2 differences when I look at this fight between Pettis and Cejudo. I think Pettis overall is one of the few guys skill-wise who can kind of do what Demetrius Johnson can do. I'm not comparing him saying he's Demetrius Johnson, but he certainly has that fluidity to this game and his ability to integrate everything and anything whenever he wants. However, when I look at the 2 differences, Henry Cejudo has the wrestling and he has the power. Pettis just doesn't hit as hard as Cejudo. Cejudo's trying to take your head off with every shot, and now he's showing a variety of a very skilled Muay Thai striker. He's doing it all at a high level, and I think when you couple that with his tremendous wrestling, I think it's going to be a tough matchup for Pettis. I think Pettis is still young. I still think that he's a guy who could be a future champion in this weight class, no doubt about it. But I think it's probably Henry Cejudo's time. I think Henry learned a lot from that fight against Demetrius Johnson. I thought he also should have got the nod against Benavidez, although that was a very close fight. I thought Cejudo was going to win it. But this is a different Henry Cejudo.
All right, co-main event, Francis Ngannou, minus 200, Alistair Overeem, plus 160. Mick Maynard not getting a lot of calls from heavyweights wanting to fight Francis Ngannou, but I love that the Reem stepped up here. Ken Flo, he's going back to the Demolition Man for this fight, by the way.
Interesting.
So that should be pretty exciting. And Overeem, on paper and in the he's been outstanding for 3 straight years here. So I don't know that it should surprise people that this betting line is fairly close or that Overeem stepped up. Lone setback in 3 years was to Stipe Miocic, a championship fight in which he knocked down and hurt the champion. But Ngannou all the rage right now, and I think rightfully so, probably the biggest power puncher in the division. He's 5-0 in the UFC. He's won 9 straight overall. There, Ken Flo, Ngannou, Overeem. Who do you like?
Yeah, I mean, this is essentially a striker's battle here. And while Alistair Overeem certainly has the footwork and the experience to avoid Ngannou as much as possible and kind of sticking and moving, I don't know if he can do it long enough. I really don't. And I think that Ngannou, whether you have a good chin or not, if Ngannou catches you, you're going to sleep, period. We just saw the results of this guy and how hard he hits. I think the fact that we also haven't seen him in a little bit, the fact that he has been training in the U.S. full-time for a while now, I think we're going to see a Francis Ngannou who is going to look like a world beater and a guy who will hold the belt at some point in his career and might hold on to it for a very long time. This is kind of one of those new era fighters. I think Francis Ngannou will catch Overeem at some point. And the way Overeem beats Ngannou is to be extremely boring. I don't know if he says he's going to be the demolition man for this one because he wants to go out and look for the knockout, but that is quite possibly the worst approach to take against the Predator, Francis Ngannou. I think Francis takes this by knockout.
All right, main event, fellas, championship rematch, as we talked about earlier. Max Holloway, Jose Aldo. Holloway right now, the favorite, minus 310. Comeback on Jose Aldo, plus 255. All right, Ken Flo, need a main event winner here. Need a round, need a method of victory. Who's the pick to click?
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, I agree with a lot of what Matt said. You know, it was interesting. The guy who went second in the fight, the guy who decided to play the counter striker in that first fight, was the guy who was doing better. Both of these guys were really trying to out-counter each other. They were looking for that first attack to slip and then rip. Both these guys did a great job of that. And essentially it was a boxing fight. And although Aldo was winning and doing a great job against Holloway for a little while, he wasn't showing that same variety. I keep saying it over and over. I think he still needs to play the counter fighter here a little bit. He needs to attack the body of Holloway, and he needs to kick a lot more. Go upstairs and downstairs. Try to slow down Holloway. Holloway has tremendous footwork. Not only does he have range, but he has excellent footwork. How do you slow down a guy like that? You take his legs out. You beat him up to the body, and you beat up his legs to really slow him down. Once you do that, then it's easy to get around the range of someone like a Max Holloway, or easier, I should say, maybe not easy. Aldo has the speed. He has the ability. I'm going with Aldo here again, man. I didn't want. I wanted to go the other way. This is ridiculous. I thought you were for sure going to go Holloway's